Okay. So we start with this kingdom Animalia. How to write a scientific name? We are writing the scientific name of Homo sapiens, man, and that is Homo sapiens. And we underline it separately. So we can see on the screen. So this is the proper way of writing the scientific name. All right. So I'll give some more names, and let's see if we can write down the scientific names of those. Like tiger. Do we know the name of the scientific name of the tiger? Anyone knows the scientific name? Panthera tigris. Very good. Very good. Lion. Cockroach. Everybody is talking about cockroaches these days. So I'll give the cockroach if we know. Tiger is Panthera tigris. Correct. And then lion will be? Lion is Panthera leo. What about cockroach?
Periplaneta americana.
Wow, very good. Very good. Periplaneta americana. Can you say why this? I'll give one more example and then come to it. Banyan. Banyan. Do we know banyan tree? The scientific name of banyan tree. What's that? It's Ficus bengalensis. Like that, again underlining. Like that, we have two names for all the organisms. This is a part of binomial nomenclature, and it was started by Carl Linnaeus. Okay, it was started by Carl von Linnaeus. He's the father of taxonomy. Carl Linnaeus. He is the father of taxonomy. What is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the branch of biology that deals with naming an organism. Taxonomy. All right. And these are common ones. I think it's better if we write these down. And then followed by this, we'll talk about the units of classification in a very quick gist. Units of classification means these two names. See, again, I take up Homo sapiens. These two names. The first name here, we refer to this as genus name or generic name. Okay. And the second name is the species name. Species name, or we call it specific epithet. Okay. Now, what is this genus and what is this species? We have to come to that. So we are understanding it so that we can understand the concept of this naming an organism part. So genus, species, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. This is the hierarchy. Hierarchy we understand smaller to bigger. Like we group one organism, we group them based on certain hierarchy. So this is the hierarchy. And what's that? To learn this hierarchy, we need to use some kind of mnemonics. I'll tell you, and that's interesting. You know what that mnemonics? See. Dear, write it this way, the way I'm writing. Dear King Philip, write this down, came over for good soup. Dear King Philip came over for good soup. Got it? So Why we have written it down? Because it's not always easy to remember the sequence, the hierarchy. So we write it in this way so that only the first alphabet we consider and we can get the hierarchy easily. Like starting with soup, species. Good, that is G, genus. And then for F, family. And then over O, order. And then came C, class. Coming to Philip, P, phylum. And then King, K, kingdom. And then beer, that's the domain. In case of animals, we have phylum. In case of plants, we consider it under division. So species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, division. These are the, this is the actually sequence. Sequence, species being the smallest unit of classification. Smallest unit of classification is species. Got it? Understood? Now these portions we need to check if this স্কুলে টিচার্সরা যদি এটাকে পড়ায় তাহলে we will go through it, but then to understand the later part we need to understand this. So this I have given the species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, division, domain. Here what we will be talking about in this chapter mainly is about the different, like we were talking about kingdom Animalia, this kingdom Animalia and the different phylum under that. Okay, we'll talk about the classes also and their scientific name. So I'm proceeding towards a small chart to make you understand how we will talk about these different kingdom. 5 kingdom classification. Whatever organisms that we have in our surrounding, they are divided into these 5 basic kingdom. Okay, and this was proposed by R.H. Whitaker. Just keep the name written, R.H. Whitaker. It's 5 kingdom classification. What are the 5 kingdom? Do we remember? Do we recall? Have we read it? We have read it earlier, but do we recall this? Can we? Can anyone recall? 5 kingdoms. What are the 5 kingdoms of classification based on which we are classifying organisms? What are they?
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
ma'am, kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom fungi, plant and animal.
Very good. Wonderful. Wonderful. So it comes up to be Monera, then Protista, there is fungi, there is plantae, and there is Animalia. Okay? So Monera is one, Protista is another one, fungi is the other one, plantae and Animalia. These are the 5 kingdoms. All the organisms are placed under these 5 kingdoms. All the organisms in our surrounding, they are placed under these 5 kingdoms. Okay, they have got certain general characteristics. I'll just talk about them. Kingdom Monera, all the organisms are unicellular. They are unicellular and they are prokaryotic. They are unicellular and they are prokaryotic. Prokaryotic means we know they are made up of a cell which doesn't have an organized nucleus. The nuclear material is scattered in the cytoplasm. That's the nature of a prokaryotic cell. We have read about it in the cell chapter. Okay, just a second. Right, and then passing on to Protista. Protista also comes. Monera means all bacteria. All the bacteria that we see around us, that is coming under kingdom Monera. And then talking about Protista. Protista, Under Protista, we have organisms which they are no more prokaryotic, they are eukaryotic. Eukaryotic, but they are unicellular. Unicellular and they are eukaryotic organisms. So we understand unicellular means single cell, but eukaryotic. Eukaryotic means they have a well-defined nuclear membrane. The nuclear material is not scattered like prokaryotes. Got it? So that is about eukaryotic organisms, and it consists of the different group of organisms. Like we talk about euglena, we talk about paramecium, we talk about the protozoans causing diseases. So many organisms are there which comes under this protista. All right, I'll just write down euglena, protozoans, etc. Then we come to fungi, and fungi, we know that the kingdom fungi, they are made up of all like many are disease causing, many are edible forms are there. We have yeast, which is a fungi, but then the basic feature for them is they are all multicellular. They are multicellular and they are eukaryotic. Multicellular and eukaryotic, all fungi means yeast mainly, and various other fungus that falls under this category. Then we come under plant, kingdom plantae. Kingdom plantae includes all the plants. All the plants means they are all multicellular. They are all multicellular. Multicellular means made up of many cells, and they are eukaryotic. Eukaryotic means they have got well-defined nucleus. True nucleus. See, EU, U. U means true. And carry on, the word carry on. Karyotic has come from the word carry on. So carry on means nucleus. So true nucleus, organisms having true nucleus. Got it? That's about plantae. So all plants that we see, banyan, mango, whatever plants we have all around us is this. And now comes kingdom animalia, regarding which the chapter is. Kingdom animalia, it includes all the organisms are multicellular, right? All the organisms under this kingdom animalia, they are multicellular and they have a true nucleus. So eukaryotes again. And all animals. Say name any animal, and that's an animalia. Rat, cat, dog, donkey, everything. They all come under kingdom animalia. Am I clear with this much? We are clear with this? All of us till now, whatever we have read, a quick look at what we have read, and then we will proceed. একবার ভালো করে দেখে নাও প্রথম থেকে. If you have missed out anything, please tell me. I'll get it back. I'll explain you once again. But then after this, we begin with the chapter in details, the portion.
Ma'am,
Yes, please.
ma'am, class quarter session.
Did we decide any time, St. Augustine
No.
people? No, we did not decide. So let's see how much we can continue, as long they have. You have school now by
Yes.
8:30. By 8:30, I think we have decided to finish this. When I decided when we can. So will you be
I'll leave
leaving
at
now?
no, ma'am. I will be leaving at around 8:20 or 25.
Okay, no problem. Good. It's great that you have joined. That is good about it, that you have joined. Okay, chalo. So let's continue with the kingdom animalia. Now, kingdom animalia means we will be talking about we will be dividing, we divide this kingdom animalia into two major group of animals. Two major group of animals means the vertebrates and invertebrates. Major group of animals is vertebrates and invertebrates. Let's write this down again. Kingdom animalia. I'll take kingdom animalia divided into invertebrates and vertebrates. Okay. So under invertebrates, what are the under invertebrates? What are the phylums? The kingdom. I'll just scroll up and I'll try to make you understand. See, I just talked about kingdom. See, kingdom. So we are talking about kingdom Animalia. So under kingdom Animalia, what we'll be having? We'll have phylum. So we will talk about the different phyla. Okay. Also, we'll talk about some classes. Like in Arthropoda, we will talk about some classes under phylum Arthropoda. And that's why I have given you this so that we understand that what is the hierarchy, how we actually differentiate them, read them under different categories. So invertebrate. In the invertebrate phylum, this we need to learn. Porifera. First is Porifera. Check the names. Next one is phylum Cnidaria. Phylum Porifera, phylum Cnidaria, phylum Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes, phylum Nematoda. Nematoda. Names are new names. Annelida. Annelida. And then we have Arthropoda. Arthropoda. Followed by that, we have Mollusca. Mollusca. And then Echinodermata. Echinodermata or Echinodermata. All right. These are all invertebrate phyla. And then under vertebrate, we will be talking about chordata. Chordata. As per our ICSE class 9 syllabus, we have these phyla in our syllabus. And when we go to higher classes, you will find that there are other categories, other classes, subclasses under these vertebrates and invertebrates too. But for now on, we have this one as in our syllabus. So what we need?
मैम
Huh.
मैम वर्टिब्रेट्स माने यार बैकबोन है ना
Yes. We are coming to that. Correct. Ekdam correct. Vertebrates means organisms, organisms having, vertebrates means organisms having their backbone. Okay, the vertebral column. Whereas invertebrates represents the organisms where they do not have the backbone. The backbone is not present in them. They have like the vertebrates. They have an internal skeleton, endoskeleton, internal skeleton. Whereas in invertebrates, they don't have an internal skeleton. Backbone is also not present. Tail is absent. We talk about heart, location of the heart, as we have heart in the ventral position. Their heart is on the dorsal side. Okay, if it is present. For all many of the organisms, they don't have heart also because they don't have a well organized body system there. Okay? And the color of their blood is not red. There means I'm talking about invertebrates. Why I'm talking about there? Because we are vertebrates, so we have the blood which is red in color. For them, it's not red. If they have blood, they have some other pigment present in them, and the color also differs accordingly. Okay? So major difference between vertebrates and invertebrates given in your book. Check, there's a table. Is it table 8.2 in your book? Please check. That is the table we are talking about. What is the table number? Who can help me with this? Is it 8.2?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So till now we have understood what we have read. Now let's talk about the first phylum, which is Porifera. Now, the most important thing that we need to remember, because there are so many new names, we have to understand these chapters, these phyla rather, by examples. Like Porifera, and an example for that. Cnidaria, and examples for that. Like that, we have to carry on for all of them. So I'll give you a small task, and that includes have a quick look into these pages and write down at least 2 examples for all these invertebrate phyla that you have written down. Porifera to Cnidaria to Platyhelminthes to all these. Please have a quick check. Okay. Have we written? Could we write? I'll ask you. For porifera, what have you written? Tell me. What have you written for porifera?
Then bath, sponge and siphon.
Okay. Good. Bath sponge, spongilla, these are there. Cycon is there. For Nidaria, we can write hydra, jellyfish, all these examples we can write. And for platyhelminthes, if you have written platyhelminthes, we are coming to the detail part of it. It's liver fluke, planaria, tapeworm, and then nematoda. We have ascaris, we have eelworm. For annelida, we have earthworm, nereis, we have leech, and for arthropoda we have all whole lot of organisms: butterfly, cockroach, and all the insects, any insects you can name. Okay, spider, scorpion, anyone. And then mollusca check. What have you written for mollusca? Can anybody tell?
And
Mollusca.
snail, octopus.
Okay, snail, octopus. And what about the other one, the echinodermata?
Starfish, beetles.
Very good, very good. সবাই লিখেছিস, আমরা লিখেছি সবাই, all of us, দুটো করে example, because it will help us to understand it better. Okay, now we will, সবার কাছে বই আছে, we will mark the features, characteristic features for all of them. How? We'll mark the characteristic features like these poriferans, they are pore-bearing animals. Starting with poriferans, they are pore-bearing animals. They have a lot of pores in their body. Pore bearers. Pore bearing animals are poriferans. Examples we have already written. And now we'll check how the pores actually function in their body. I'll try to share my screen. Some diagram. Let's see what we get. Yes.
ম্যাম ম্যামেলিয়া যেটা আছে ক্লাসটা, ওটা ভার্টিব্রেটস আসবে?
Yes, that is under vertebrates. Now we are under class Mammalia. So this is a typical sponge, as we can see. From externally, it looks like this. Okay, as we have some diagram in the book also. We'll go to the detail labeling part of it, but then it is something like this, where we have these like there are numerous pores through which water enters from outside to inside, and then there's a single opening on top. You can see there's a small hole like thing, pore like thing on top, from where the water comes out, the wastewater comes out. So this is a typical sponge which looks like this. Okay, typical sponge looks like this. I'll try to draw the diagram and show you how actually, how actually it functions. Okay, so the pore bearing animals, poriferans, examples we have seen, and to have a look at it, how the functional activity takes place actually. Like if we consider this to be a sponge, as we have just seen, the diagram comes up like this. They have this mouth kind of thing here, and then the body has got numerous pores present, and these pores, they are known as ostium. Singular is ostium, and then plural is ostia. Okay, water from outside, they are attached to the substratum. Water from outside enter their body through these small minute pores. Okay, and then there is a cavity inside. Okay, water enters in, and the nutrients are taken from this water, whatever food they get, and then the wastewater comes out from the mouth to the outside. This mouth region, the exit part opening, this is known as osculum. Understood? Osculum. Ostium are the entry ways for the water to get in, and osculum is the major opening from where the waste comes out. বুঝতে পারলাম সবাই? This is the basic features. I'll just read out. They are the simplest multicellular animals. The body consists of a hollow tube. We'll mark these points as point number 1, point number 2. No single mouth, but many pores or canals are present in the body. That is point number 3 regarding them. And sponges capture their food through this water that comes into, all right, a single large opening on top of the exit for water, which we are referring to as osculum. And followed by that, the sponges usually have a skeleton of microscopic spongin spicules. Microscopic spongin spicules, spicules, spongin spicules. This makes their body tough from outside. Okay. Elastic spongin fibers, and except 1 or 2 freshwater sponges, all are present in the sea. And then we have written down the example. So this is about phylum Porifera. Okay, we will pass on to the next one. So Porifera done. Porifera done. We talk about Cnidaria now. Cnidaria. Cnidaria means we'll remember about Hydra. Cnidaria. Cnidaria. Example, I said that we need to remember examples: Hydra, jellyfish. These are the examples. Now the typical Hydra, how does it look like? I'll try to draw a Hydra. Hydra, we know why this Hydra is famous. I mean, we remember about Hydra. What is very specific about Hydra that we remember, that we have been reading all these years in our lower classes? Tell me. Hydra and we say Hydra and budding, है ना? হাইড্রা কোথায় কোথায় পড়েছি আমরা? ক্লাস 8-এ পড়েছি রিপ্রোডাক্টিভ সিস্টেমে যে asexual reproduction, Hydra undergoes budding. So that is very much famous about Hydra, that Hydra has always, they will have a bud. See, I've tried to draw a bud also over here. A typical Hydra is an animal which belongs to phylum Cnidaria, okay, and it has got these tentacles. These are tentacles, okay. These tentacles, they have got some stinging cells. We call those stinging cells as nematocysts. Very important. Stinging cells called nematocysts. Nematocysts. Stinging cells or nematocysts. These are, what do? They spread the harmful toxins. Whenever they find some prey, some food by their outskirts, surroundings. Suppose there's a food for them, some smaller animals. So what do? They secrete some toxins. Secrete toxins in such a way that these organisms are killed, and then the tentacles grab them and put it into their mouth, the mouth region. This is known as, the region surrounding the mouth is known as hypostome. Region surrounding the mouth is known as hypostome. So that part, the tentacles bring them. They first like scatter the toxin through the nematocysts, and then they paralyze the prey, and then the prey is put into the mouth through the hypostome. This is the way they obtain their food, because they don't have any appendages, they don't have any other modified structures, and they are very basic organisms. They don't have a proper organ system also. So this way they take the food, and the wastewater is again released through this single opening to the outside. Waste needs to be removed, that is through this single opening to the outside. This is about Cnidaria. Okay, I'll just read about the points. It has got a 2-layered body wall, encloses a single body cavity called coelenteron. Yes, inside the body there's a cavity. That food enters into that coelenteron. This body cavity is coelenteron. Coelenteron. Okay. All right. So the cavity opens by a mouth at one end only, as we have seen. There are tentacles to catch food organism. The cnidarians are found in water, mostly in seawater, very few in fresh water. corals are also good examples. Corals, whenever we go to a sea beach, especially Andamans, if you have visited, you might have seen large number of corals over there, right? If you have, so these corals are present there. Corals develop hard skeletons made up of calcium carbonate from their secretion. They are not their bones, but then calcium carbonate. I have added some new terms here, the stinging cells or nematocysts. Please remember that because this is important. Okay, have a quick read of this portion and let's carry on with the next one further. Okay. Sorry. And then we pass on to platyhelminthes. I don't want to waste time. Let's proceed. Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes, see the name itself signifies that platy means flat. So platyhelminthes is actually referring to flatworms. They are all flatworms. Platy means flat. So the worms under this, they are all flat. What examples have we read over here? We have talked about the planaria. We have talked about the tapeworm. Examples: tapeworm, planaria. Okay? Tapeworm and planaria. So here, the flatworms, the first important feature for them is they have a small, soft, flattened, unsegmented body. Small, and they have got a flat, because the name is flatworm, so they have got a small, flat, unsegmented body. And here, they have an alimentary canal, but again that is because the body is flat, so that is not distinctly containing any specific organ system. So they have small, soft, flat, unsegmented worm without a body cavity. They don't have a proper body cavity inside the body. There is no specific cavity because they are flat, dorsoventrally flat. From the dorsal surface and the ventral surface, they are flat. Alimentary canal has only one opening. Here also organisms, they have only one opening. The alimentary canal is having only one opening, and most of the flatworm, they are living inside the body as parasites. Yes, they live inside the body as parasite, like this tapeworm. Tapeworm, we'll see how it looks. They have got suckers. Okay, they have got suckers through which they suck the nourishment they obtain from the host body, and they have got hooks in their head region with which they remain attached to the intestinal wall. So that is the specific feature of the flatworms or platyhelminthes. Okay, so parasitic forms are liver fluke, tapeworm. Free living plant is planaria. I'll try to show you flatworm. FLAT. If you can see, they are really, organisms in the sea. They are very beautiful. You can see so many organisms. Let's highlight. I'll take this one. This is a worm. Okay, marine flatworm. Have you seen? Looks beautiful. See the color. So beautifully colored, and they are all flat. So we have to remember it this way. This is a flatworm. I'll try to show you another worm, flatworm, which is tapeworm, and see whether you have seen this earlier or not. Tapeworm. Have you seen this tapeworm earlier? Can you see? I'll come with an individual photo, but you can see this figure like I'm trying to highlight this figure. This is inside the intestinal wall. Intestinal wall, they are present. Okay. And with the help of the sucker-like structure that we have seen, typical flatworm is if I just take up this one, this is dreadful to see, but then these are the sucker-like structures that we can see, and these suckers, through these suckers, as I was saying, they just check the nourishment, take the nourishment from the host body. They are parasitic form, and see the hooks on top. These hooks actually they are fixing themselves to the wall of the intestine with the help of these hooks. Got it? That's a tapeworm. Next to tapeworm is the roundworm. Okay, and we will see the roundworm first, and then we go to its explanatory part. Roundworms are all many of us we have suffered from this, which enters into our body through some of the other pathway. We'll discuss about it through some soil. From the soil, they enter into our body, from the vegetables that are grown in the croplands and all. From there, you can see inside the eye how some has entered. Can you see this? It's really inside the eye. And then the worms are generally like this parasitic worm. Let's take up this one. This is a typical roundworm. Understood? A typical roundworm looks like this. Roundworm, why? You can see the body of the organism is full round from all the sides. Okay, so that's a roundworm. The male and female organisms are separate over here. Okay, male and female organisms separate. The female organism is much longer. Male organism is a little smaller than the female. Okay, all right. Let's talk about their explanatory portion. After this tapeworm, we'll come to this roundworm part. Roundworm, as said. Roundworm example is Ascaris. Ascaris, which causes the disease ascariasis. We have read in the disease chapter, right? They cause the disease ascariasis. So Ascaris. Ascaris causes ascariasis. So they are parasitic form again. Okay, mostly parasitic form. We have got eelworm in potato, and this ascaris, which is a roundworm. Roundworm, why? Because the shape of the organism we have seen, they are round. They are long, cylindrical, unsegmented. So long, cylindrical, shaped, and unsegmented. Unsegmented worm. There is no segmentation. Okay, so they are somewhat like this: long, cylindrical, and unsegmented worm. The female worm is longer than the male worm, and here they don't have a body cavity till now. Like in Platyhelminthes, we said no, they do not have a body cavity. We need to have a body cavity in which all the organs are placed. So these organisms, they have not well developed. They do not have well developed body organs present in them. So the body, they don't have a body cavity. This nematoda, the roundworms, they have a false body cavity. False body cavity. They have a false body cavity. Correct? That is a part. Now here in this case, the alimentary canal has got two openings. This is a very striking and important feature for this roundworms. Till Platyhelminthes, there was only one opening in the body from where the food entered and the waste went out. But from roundworm onwards, they have a mouth and they have an anus. So they have got two opening in their body. All right. So the alimentary canal formation has just started. Okay. They are mostly parasitic. They live in soil, free in the soil also. Hookworm, ascaris in man, eelworm in potato. They are the example. Understood? Can we understand the points as we are going from one form to another? We need to understand how the organisms have evolved one after the other. And then we come to Annelida. Annelida. Annelida, one term, is segmented worms. They are segmented worms. Okay. Segmented worms mean the worms have got segments, and earthworm is the best example. When we draw an earthworm, we see that this earthworm has got numerous segments that can be seen from outside. I'm trying to draw an earthworm. I'm trying to show these segments, and a mature worm has around 100 to 120 segments in their body. A mature earthworm, you'll find 100 to 120 segments. So as they grow mature, they have more segments in their body. Okay, that is it. So a mature worm is like this. They have so many segments, and then at a particular region of the body, there is a region which shows like a glandular skin surrounding that particular that part. Okay, and this is the mouth part, near the mouth part, that is mouth, and this is anus, because now onwards they have got two opening in their body. So this near the mouth, there is a region known as clitellum. This band of muscle, thick band of muscle, is clitellum, which actually is important as it participates in reproduction. This part participates in reproduction, and that's why this is important. All right. So talking about the segmented worm, typically segmented worm means, as said, they have around 80 to 120 segments depending upon the size of the worm. The body of an annelid worm is cylindrical, as we can say, divided into ring-like segments. We can see from here, annelid worm has a well-developed digestive system. See, now as they have a entry point mouth and exit point anus, so they have a well-developed elementary system. That is, sorry, elementary canal digestive system. Well developed digestive system. So whatever they eat, they take the nourishment and they release the waste from there. They release the waste from there. Got it? So that's a well developed digestive system they have. And elementary canal is open and both the ends. They have a true body cavity. So now we have come to the point that they have a true body cavity. Till now, what we were reading was they have only either they have a false body cavity. In case of this roundworm, we have seen they have a false body cavity. In case of tapeworm, we have seen they do not have no body cavity is present. Okay, so body cavity was absent in flatworms. In Ascaris, they have a false body cavity. Now coming to Annelida, the segmented worms, they have a true body cavity. What is this true body cavity known as? The true body cavity is coelom. So they are called coelomates. Coelomates, true body cavity, coelomates. Okay, the coelom is present. So this is about the typical annelid phylum Annelida. Apart from earthworm, we were talking about earthworm. There is leech, there is nereis. Okay, there is nereis and leech that are examples of this phylum Annelida. Right. Now, after this, we have a small portion that talks about earthworm being friends of farmers. Earthworms are friends of farmers. Can anybody speak on this? A few lines or anything that you know. Why do we call earthworms to be friends of farmers? Yes? Anyone? Anything? Any point that you know? Without reading the book, anything that you know? Earthworms are called farmer's friend. What role does it play to a farmer that the farmer is considering it to be a friend? Why? Anyone? Yes?
It makes the soil fertile.
Yes. That's very good point. You have explained. It makes the soil fertile. Makes the soil fertile in a sense. It heats the soil and it releases the same soil. We just read, no? This earthworm, they are
Ma'am,
they have a well developed digestive system. Yes, Animi, you'll be leaving, right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking out time and joining. That's great.
Okay.
Okay. You have school? Okay, bye bye. So, earthworms are friends of farmers. Yes, you are correct. Because they eat the soil and they release the same soil. Okay. They eat the soil and then they release the same soil. Now, what is the difference between the soil they eat and the soil they release? They eat the soil because earthworm actually they burrow. They live in the burrows and then they keep on turning the soil layers. They just get into the soil layer and they interchange the topsoil with the lower layers of the soil. They eat the soil and they release the same soil. I'll just try to draw here something like kind of pellets. Now they eat the soil, and when they release the soil, they form these kind of like structures when the soil is released from the body. So these kind of structures you might have seen heaps of these small a band of soil which are deposited, which are present on the soil. Some part, if you have ever observed, these are actually known as castings. Castings. This is the leftovers. I mean, earthworm releases them. The leftover, yes. When the earthworm releases the soil, leftover from anus. It eats the soil and it releases the soil. When the soil comes outside, it forms this shape. Like when we use the toothpaste or anything from a tube, any ointment, cream, anything we which is a little semi fluid or a semi solid rather structure. That's better to say semi solid. You uh, like try to take out from there as for example the toothpaste, and you put it on the brush and you see that it comes up in the form of a specific shape of the tube like shape. So same thing occurs in case of earthworms because it's coming out from the alimentary canal, which is a tube inside the body. Okay, so that alimentary canal is a tube-like structure from where when the soil comes out, it comes out like this. And these soil, why I'm going on specifying on this, because these are castings and they are rich in nitrogen. They are rich in nitrogen. They are rich in nitrogen, and these, when mixes with the soil, it enhances the nitrogenous content in the soil. And we know that plant cannot take nitrogen directly from the atmosphere. We know that, right? And that's why we have been talking about nitrogen fixation. We will be talking about it more in later chapters. So these castings are released, which is rich in nitrogen. It mixes with the soil, and this provides organic manure. Organic manure which actually enhances the nutrient content of the soil. So if it is there in the crop field, it's obviously beneficial for the farmers. So they are friends of farmers. Got it? So that way we can explain them to be friends of farmers, and economic importance of earthworm is given. We'll read the points, consider the points. Economic importance, it loosens the soil. So when the earthworm is getting into the soil, coming outside the soil, it is loosening the soil so it gets proper air. The water reaches the roots of the soil, roots of the plant. So that's why they are benefited. Again, earthworms interchange the soil. So when soil is interchanged and they are releasing this casting, they are mixed with the soil. So the nutrient content of the soil is also enhancing, right? And then which is rich in nitrogenous matter. And then earthworm is used in vermiculture. Anybody having an idea about vermiculture? What is vermiculture? What is vermiculture? Any idea what is vermiculture? Culturing with the help of earthworm. That is vermiculture. Vermiculture means it's a process where soil is dug, a pit is made. No, we make compost pit. A pit is made, and that pit is about 1 meter in depth and enough 1 to 2 meter in their length. And then it is dug out, and all the plant debris, the biodegradable part, that is plant leaves, stem, whatever they are put, and vegetable peels and all, they can be dropped into it, and it should be covered with soil, and some earthworms are left inside, and then it is covered with soil. It is left like that undisturbed for some time, say around 3 months. Around 3 months, if it is kept. After that, if you just dig that soil, you will find that there is the soil has become the color of the soil changes to dark brown kind of. Okay, and then the soil is loose. So what earthworm has been doing all these 3 months? Generally, it's kept for 3 to 4 months, where the earthworm can actually work on them. Earthworm eats the soil. It releases the same soil, the nitrogen content increases, and the whole lot of the soil inside that pit turns out to be organic manure, and they are sold in the market at quite high prices also, because these days people have understood the disadvantages of all these pesticides being used. The pesticides means the harmful fertilizers being used, right? And that is why this organic manure is important. You might have heard about food grown with organic manure. So organic farming. So with the use of this organic manure, that organic farming is done. And the vegetables grown, they are a little higher priced. Why? Because this takes time. Anything which is available in less quantity is priced high, we know that. So same with this. I hope you're able to understand. Nobody is responding, so I'm not able to understand. So this is the part. And then also, yes, have you ever, this whole process is vermicomposting process. Acha. Have you ever been to catch fish in the pond? গেছিস কেউ মাছ ধরতে? মানে কেউ, have you ever tried? Anybody? No one? Aishani, Amanisha, Arav, Jyoti, Shubronil. Not been to? No, no one has been to. Oh, I did not talk. And Noirita and Shomili and no, no, nobody has been. So this, when you go to the fishing, go for fishing, you know what is the food that is given to the fishes? You have to, like in the fishing rod, you have to give some food. What is that? What is generally given? Do we know that? Aata diye na? Worms. Yes, worms are given. Generally, if you don't get these worms, generally বাড়িতে কি বানানো হয়? আটা দিয়ে গোলা গোলা গোল 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 small balls are made. They are put into the hooks, and that is actually given for the fish to eat. That's a general feed. But worms are, fishes love worm. So these small fishes, small baits. Baits means small worms are used as baits for catching fish. So in that hook, that small earthworm, they are put into it, and then they are given with a rod, fishing rod. You sit and you'll surely get a fish coming up to it. Next time, try fishing. That's very interesting. You know, I also did not try. Just once long back when I was small, I tried once long back. So that's an interesting thing, like you're observing. Okay. Just a second. All right. So that's about earthworm, fishing, and all. And now we pass on to arthropoda. Arthropoda. Started raining heavily. All of you will be going to school. Have to go to school today. Lucky.
No, miss.
Manisha will not go. Okay, but it's sudden. Here it's raining very heavily. What about Barakpur? Is it raining there too? বৃষ্টি হচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ হচ্ছে।
Project submission. Okay. This project submission to always there. Okay. So now talking about arthropoda, the jointed legged animals. Yes, arthropods are the jointed legged animals are arthropods. Jointed legged animals. Legs are joined. Legs are joined. I'll just try to draw a very simple worm. I'll try to draw a simple worm with a basic head, thorax, abdomen. Okay. Antenna. Okay, a very simple one. And now, if we talk about their limbs, we know that the limbs come up like this. Three pairs of appendages. So this is jointed appendages. Understood? This is about jointed appendages. This is, suppose I have drawn a butterfly. All the flies, kind of, they will be having three pairs of jointed legs. Then we have the scorpion, the spider, they have got four pairs of jointed limbs. As many limbs are there, they are all jointed. That is the thing. We have millipede and centipede. Suppose millipede and centipede, kind of, they also have this jointed limbs. Millipedes means the limbs are at millimeter gap. But again, if we have it in this side, on the other side also we have. So that's why it's jointed legged animals. All right. So that is jointed legged animals. Okay, they are all the organisms under arthropoda. That's the most important feature. And talking about them, this is the largest phyla of the species of animal kingdom. Largest phyla. This is the largest phyla. Okay. Along with that, these phylum have jointed limbs, one pair each on some or on all body segments. They have these jointed limbs. There's an exoskeleton of chitin. Exoskeleton of made up of chitin, calcium carbonate, hard outer covering. They have most of them. And they cast off their exoskeleton during their growth in early life. If you remember in the lower classes, if you have written about egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Life cycle of butterfly, silkworm, not butterfly, silkworm. So there, the egg changes to larva and then the larva to pupa. During this larva and pupal stage, what happens? The organism sheds its skin many number of times, 3 to 4 times. They shed their skin. Shedding of the skin is known as molting. Molting, or we call it ecdysis. Shedding of the skin is molting or ecdysis. All right. So this is molting undergoes 3 to 4 times. Why? Because the worm, the caterpillar actually, the caterpillar, it keeps on feeding, and as a result, it increases in size. So once it increases in size, it sheds its skin. Again, it starts eating, and again, it increases in size. It sheds its skin. Again, it increases in size. Like that, 3 to 4 times takes place. So this is very specific feature of almost all the arthropods. We call it molting. The casting off and regrowing of the exoskeleton is collectively called molting. We have the term given in the book. And then there are so many examples. Have a quick look at the examples. And if you just check a portion given, there are 4 classes of arthropods. There are 4 classes of arthropods. Okay. The first one is Crustacea. And then we have Myriapoda. Crustacea, then Myriapoda, and then we have Crustacea, Myriapoda, Insecta, and we have Arachnida. Arachnida. We don't have much details of this in our class 9 syllabus, but then we should be knowing these 4 classes with their examples. Crustacea, as you can see, under the crustaceans we have the crayfish, the crab. Under myriapods we have millipede, centipede. Under insecta we have grasshopper, beetle, butterfly, all these winged insects. And then we have the arachnids, with those who have the 4 pairs of limbs. They are spider, scorpion, all of them. Got it? This is about arthropoda. Now we come to mollusca. Arthropoda pore holo mollusca. What is that? Mollusca. Let's come to that's mollusca. Mollusca, they're actually soft-bodied animals. We remember them as soft-bodied animals. Soft-bodied animals. Soft-bodied animals, they have soft, unsegmented body and they have a hard, calcareous shell. Hard calcareous shell. Calcareous shell means again made up of calcium carbonate. Hard calcareous shell, outer covering. Because the body is very soft, the outer covering is hard. All right, so that is of course mainly for protection. Snail, example, if we come to the examples of this mollusca, we have those octopus, we have the snail, the pond snail, very common. Snail, octopus to remember the commonly we can remember these two names, that's why. And then we have mussels, chiton, loligo, slug, sepia, the cuttlefish. All these are the examples. So they are soft-bodied, unsegmented body, hard calcareous shell to protect the soft body. They have a muscular food for locomotion. Yes, they have muscular food for locomotion. So with the help of, you have seen the snail, how it has got this antenna, the feelers, and then it moves with the help of this muscular foot. The moment you try to touch them or just go much near to them, it retracts itself and puts itself inside the shell. So that is the way of protecting themselves, because they know they have got a soft body, so they are protecting themselves under the hard calcareous shell. Muscular foot is meant for locomotion. All right, and then this is acting as a weapon in some cases also, protecting them as a weapon. All right, this is about mollusca, and now we go to echinodermata. 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 Echinodermata, echinoderms, they are generally known by spiny skinned animals. Spiny skinned animals. So spiny skinned animals means they have got spines all throughout their body. Yes, they have spiny structure around their body. They are unsegmented marine animals. They are unsegmented marine animals. Starfish is a very good example. We'll see how the starfish move. That's a very interesting movement. We'll see that. Spiny skinned animals means they are, they are unsegmented. Unsegmented. Of course, marine form, all in marine habitat will get it. Unsegmented marine forms, they have an exoskeleton. Exo means outside the body. Exoskeleton of that is a spiny surface. All right, and they have radial symmetry. If you talk about a starfish, say starfish, they have radial symmetry. Radial symmetry means the body can be divided into two equal halves on a plane. Either this side, or we go this way, or we come this way. So body is divided into two equal halves. That's what starfish tried to show here. So they are radially symmetrical. Radial symmetry they show, and then they have tube feet. Locomotion is by tube feet. That's very interesting in them for capturing food as well as for locomoting. Okay, tube feet which are present under the arm. The arms under the arms, the tube feet is present. Tube feet is present. Okay, so these are the features of this worm. Let me see if I can show you a good locomotory action for this. Mollusca tube feet. Mollusca Echinodermata. STAR, starfish is locomotion. If we have some video. Video unavailable. Can you see properly? I don't think.
Starfish can move in any direction with any one of its arms in the lead. On the underside of the starfish are rows of movable projections called tube feet. The tube feet are slender tubes that extend as water is pumped into them.
Can you hear the sound? You can't hear. So then you just see how these are the tube feet, the tube-like structure which is extending from the under surface of the arms. It's coming out, projecting out, holding fast for locomotion. See this, so beautiful. So they are locomoting, they are moving. See, hundreds of these kind of tube feet, they are supporting their body. See, these are this
Small suction cup, which can be attached
suction cup kind of thing. So this way, with the help of numerous these tube feet, tube-like structure acting as feet. So that's tube feet.
and is glued to rocks and other hard surfaces as it creeps along.
So beautiful, right?
The swimming marine iguana is unique to the Galapagos Islands.
So that's about the all the kingdoms that we have talked about. The phylum, rather, phylum under animal kingdom. Okay. Now, tell me that have we understood this animal kingdom part that we have read? Wherever you have difficulty, please let me know right now. Because we have the vertebrate part. I wish to take the vertebrate part in the class, because if you read all of them together, it will be a messy thing. So I feel it's better we